seems to work. So, switching to English. Okay, so today is about introduction, a little bit about sources and methods for thesis, because there are different methods that you need to look at and also apply and employ in your thesis. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. So I can skip this one. So we start with the introduction, or the whole thesis actually. What you need to do is to create a logic flow through the thesis that have the red thread. And sometimes when you write, it will become obvious that you need to reshuffle a bit. But if you follow the introduction with the titles and subtitles, it's easier to get it right. So there's a reason why you have these steps, step by step. And I will go through the whole part of the introduction. And the reason why I focus on the introduction is that it is the absolutely hardest part of the whole thesis. It takes time and it's hard to know what to write about when you write about your own area. Because there aren't really any good way of writing a thesis. I mean, there are a million of ways, and there are better and worse, but we're trying to do it as good as possible. Often I get a question, do we have one single thesis that we can hand out to you so you can look at it, what's good in it? But there are always some mistakes in each and every thesis. It's really hard to show where the mistakes are, and therefore it's really hard to give you one perfect example. It's hard to get one. And I don't want to lure you into the problems. I want you to make a good thesis. Okay, so what you do is that you start with introducing the area, and that's what we call the background. You describe it in the background. And then you need to explain what needs to be done, and that's what you are doing for your degree project. So that's what you're going to do in the degree project, and also what you're going to write about. The result is in the thesis, but you need to have a problem so you can combine that in a way so you can present it in a result later on. And when you have defined a problem, you go to a purpose and say what's supposed to be done in the thesis, what's supposed to be presented in the thesis. And the result of the work is something you put in the goal. So you also need to present the result of the work. And it is a difference between those. And so I'm going to show you later on what the difference are. And then we have the methods you're using to carry out the thesis, which is scientific methods. It's not the methods you use to carry out the project. It is the method you use to carry out the thesis. So in the thesis you need to first focus on the methods carried out for the thesis, and secondly the methods carried out for the project. But both will be in the thesis. Okay? And then how the work will be presented in the thesis is the outline. So how is the skills when it comes to writing thesis? Have you?
We did write a short thesis in the ICT course.
Mm-hmm.
And more about modern software development, I guess.
Okay. So you know a little bit already what's in the different parts? So when it comes to the introduction, everything?
And shouldn't the limitations also be in the introduction?
Oh yes, absolutely. So these are the parts that we usually have in the introduction. So we do have the background, the problem description. So we go through the problem statement, the purpose, the goal, the method, the limitation, and outline. So are you familiar with those? There is one more subtitle you can have, and that is the stakeholder. Are you going to do your project in a company? Will there be somebody who is giving you the requirements? So that's a stakeholder. So, yeah, okay. But what I would like to do is still, even though you know a lot about these parts already, I would still like to talk a little bit about it, because I'm not sure that you get the correct information from the other ones, because I don't know what they have taught you. Okay? There is a significant difference between report and thesis. And the significance is that a report, you don't have to have an introduction, really. You only have to have one title and that's it. And then you can just have text. But when you're doing something scientifically, you need to have more of a thesis. So you are writing a thesis here, not a report. But I know we call it report from time to time, but the name that we use is not really a good name for it, since you write a thesis. So be aware of that. It's a big difference. So anyway, but the flow is to go through from the introduction down to the outliners, tell what you're going to do, so you give a good description of what you're going to do. So let's start with the background. And in the background you describe the area. I want to show you one thing before moving further. What I want to show you is this. I often see introduction that is a chapter 1 and then 1.2 is background, directly title under subtitle. And that's wrong. You should always have something in between. So you always introduce the area underneath introduction title. So the general description should be there, and then you come to the background. So always, always, always do that. So don't put titles under subtitles, okay? Anyway, so let's go back to the background. So now you start with a general description of your area. And you don't want to have an old history. You don't want to talk about, oh, internet was started to be used in 1980 something, and then you're maybe creating some web pages. That's too general and not interesting. Focus. So try to focus what's for you, what is important as a general information for you. So it can be something of, if you're creating web pages, it could be something about web pages in general, and that's general enough. Do not start with a company. Company is not a scientific part of your thesis. Company is a stakeholder. So don't start with Ericsson wants to have this web page created. Instead, you start with the general description of the web pages and something that you want to focus on. The general description should go to the background, so it's connected. You just introduce the user or the reader where you are at. So you start very, very in an easy way. Then you come to the background where you describe the area which you are in. And you have, of course, a literature review that is a kickoff for your area, and tell what's in it that you want to show. And even though you might sometimes feel that, okay, everybody should know this. This is general information, I shouldn't even have to describe it. But the thing is that you have some information, some experience in your area, but you need to tell the reader your definition, because there are so many different definitions. And we don't know which definition you are going to use. I read recently where they said that what you read is what you are, meaning that everything you read so far, that is your knowledge. But you can't know everything. You just know what you read. But if you're looking at a web page and you want to maybe discuss the development of it, you need to give the definition of what you mean by this. So that's the background. You tell the reader, okay, this is the information you need, and this is my definition of it. So even though you're using somebody else stating something, you need to tell your interpretation of it. So that's what you do in the background. And what this background is about is to go moving towards the problem area, the problem statement. So you have to give enough information so you can get the reader to understand the problem or problems there are in your area